Being a teacher, our main intention is that to transact the curriculum, and we expect that our students should learn this curriculum or whatever the learning experiences we are going to provide. So if you want make your students to understand whatever the material you want to transact, you should have an effective communication skills, not only for with reference to the teaching learning situation I'm telling. So this is in general. For example, being a common layman, if we go around in our society, or if you want to speak with your neighbor or with your friends, we need communication skills. Whatever the message you want to communicate with your friends or with your members of your society, we expect that what the message conveyed by me or by you, it should be reach, or it should reach effective other participants or other members who are opposite or who are facing us. So with that background, so being teachers, what is this communication skills? What kind of skills we should practice to become an effective teacher? So in that background, I'm going to discuss about the communication skills in this session and in the next session also. So first let us see the meaning of the communication. So this communication is nothing but it is a vehicle for transmission of information. So if we go back to our ancient society, in ancient society, what happened? So at first we don't know, but through our what our literature says based on that, the man, ನಮ್ಮ ಆದಿ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ಮಾನವರು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಂವಹನ ಎನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಬಟ್ ವಿತ್ ಸಮ್ ಮೋಡ್ ಆಫ್ media, they used to, with some ways of communication, they used to transmit the information. So therefore here the meaning, if we generally want to see the meaning of the communication, it is a vehicle for transmission of information. Whatever the information I have, I want to transform this to other. To transfer that information, to send that information, I need a vehicle, and that vehicle is nothing but communication. So if we take the etymological meaning of this Latin, this word communication, it has been derived from the Latin word communis, means common. That means common. It is common to all, nothing but sharing of common understanding and experiences with others. So sharing of the common understanding, whatever the common understanding and experiences I have, I'm going to share that experiences with others. That is nothing but communication. I have taken only one simple definition for this communication, which was given by Edgar Dale. So Edgar Dale says that communication is nothing but sharing of ideas and feeling in a mood of mutuality. See what he says, where we are going to share the ideas and feeling in a mood of mutuality. Mutuality means there should be mutual understanding. Mutually, that it means if I am going to send some my ideas, or if I am going to share my ideas and feelings with others, vice versa. So that is communication. It is the sharing of ideas and feelings in a mood of mutual. There will be a mutual interaction. So if we see a comprehensive definition or meaning of this communication, here communication is the process of sharing and exchanging the experiences, information, ideas, opinions, sentiments, thoughts, feelings, etc. So between the source of communication and receiver through this mutually agreeable or known media. This is a comprehensive meaning of the communication. It is nothing but sharing or exchanging of the ideas, feelings, experiences, opinions, thoughts or feelings between the source of communication. Source of communication is nothing but sender and the receiver. That means whatever I'm going to say, it should reach somebody. That is receiver, who is going to receive my information through some mutually agreeable. That means through some mutually agreeable or known media. That is through some using some media, through using some some ways we are going to exchange or we are going to share that ideas. That is communication. If you want to see the process of communication, So here the process of communication, it is in cyclical manner. It is a cyclical process. See here what I had given the definition in the previous slide. Just see that this is the source of communication. Source of communication, for that source we are going to name as sender. And we are going to share, I told we are going to share the ideas, feelings, or thoughts, or experiences. That is nothing but the material. What material we are going to communicate. So this sender, that is the source of communication. That is we need a person who should be there to initiate the communication. And that person is named as sender. He is the person who is going to initiate the communication through sending or through transmitting some material. That is communication material. And through what? Through some communication media. I will come to this communication media in the next slides. Through using some medias. That medias may be your voice or your letter or your something like your body gestures, or it may be any other media. That is, the sender is going to send the communication material using some communication media to whom? To the receiver. That is, at the next end of this sender, there will be a receiver. That is the person who is going to receive whatever the communication material sent by the sender through communication media. And that will be received by the receiver. And this receiver is going to receive the material and is going to encode it, and the receiver will understand the material, and again receiver will respond back or responded material of feedback, that is in the form of feedback or in the form of giving answers. Receiver is going to send, or he or she is going to respond to the sender again. Even the receiver is going to use the communication media. That media, as I told, with reference to sender, this communication media may be the same thing, where the receiver can use some audiovisual materials or some technological materials, or a letter or a mail, or through his verbatism, like that. The receiver can send this his feedback or her feedback to the sender. Again, the cycle starts. See, the process of communication, it is a cyclical process which involves a source of communication, communication material, communication media, receiver, feedback. And here I have mentioned 2 points. Here again, these facilitators are barriers. Again, facilitators are barriers between sender and the receiver, receiver and the sender. We will see what are these facilitators and barriers in detail in the next coming slides. Here, in the left side, in this diagram, this is related with the components of the communication. Mainly, there are 5 components of the communication. That is source of communication, sender, communication material, communication media, receiver, responded material feedback, and facilitators or barriers. These are the 5 components of this communication. Here, if we come to the sender, that is the source of communication. Here I have mentioned teacher. So here I have taken the example of teacher because we are all teachers, and to transmit our syllabus or our curriculum, being a teacher, we are going to take the place of sender. So in that sender, here, this sender is the source of communication. Source of communication means he is the person who has the material with him or her to transact. So he is the source for communication. And then that source of communication may be, here we are, as in general I am telling, that source of communication may be an object, or it may be an event, or it may be a person. See why I have mentioned object or event. Object means, for example, if we are going to see our table or a system or a chair, even that object is also going to, that is also going to convey some messages to us. By seeing, simply seeing a table, we are going to understand something. Yes, if you see a table, a different model, yeah, what a new model of table is this, ಹೊಸದಾಗಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲಿದೆ, ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತಂದಿರಬಹುದು, ಇದರ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇರಬಹುದು, ಹೀಗೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. So even that object becomes the source of communication. If we come to event, any event, even through that event, we are going to get some message. For example, while walking or while coming to the your schools or colleges or to anywhere you are going, if you are going to observe an event, and that event is going to convey some messages to you. So in that manner, that event is going to, or that event becomes source of communication. And person, obviously, as I told, if a person in face to face, if he is going to share or tell something about him or her, or about if he or she is going to share their ideas, again, the person becomes the source of communication. So therefore here, if we are going to consider the source of communication, that is sender, what we call sender means who is going to send the message, who is going to transmit the information. So the source of communication may be an object or an event, or it may be a person. And this person, being a source of communication, is going to transmit information, ideas, thoughts, feelings, etc., etc. So that is the sender, that is source of communication. ಅದು ಸಂವಹನದ ಒಂದು ಮೂಲ ಒಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ವಸ್ತು ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಘಟನೆ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು. ಆ ಘಟನೆ ಅಥವಾ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಅಥವಾ ವಸ್ತುಗಳಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ, ಐಡಿಯಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನ, ಚಿಂತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ವರ್ಗಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಒಂದು ಆ ಒಂದು ಸೋರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೆಂಡರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. And then the next component of this communication is the contents or message. What content you want to transmit or what message you want to convey. That is what is intended to transmit. ಏನನ್ನ ನೀವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಉದ್ದೇಶಿತ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. What you want to convey by speaking with somebody, what you want to tell them, what you want to convey, what message you want to send them. That is content. And this content, whatever you want to transmit, it may be organized or structured. Organized or structured. For example, I told you are all new teachers. Just now you have entered the field of teaching. So before going to your class, you will get ready with your lesson plans or your lecture plans or what content you want to deliver to your students. So for that, what you are going to do, you are going to get ready. You are going to organize the teaching materials or teaching points in a systematic manner. So structure, before entering to your classroom, you are going to give a structure to your material, lecture material. What should I deliver first? Then after, if the first point is completed, then what should I discuss? What should come in the last? Like that, you are going to organize your message or your content in a structured manner, or you are going to organize it. And then I have mentioned unorganized or unstructured also. That is, whatever the contents or message you are going to transmit, that may be unorganized or unstructured. I have given an example of the classroom situation. Here, unorganized means sometimes what happens suddenly. If we take the your educational institution itself, the teacher or if one teacher is absent, the HM may or your principal may ask you to take the class. Again, without any preparation or without organizing material, you have to enter to the classroom. Or sometimes what I told, here an object or event or person I told, while telling that, I told while going through while going to your home, you may observe something and you want to convey that information or you want to transmit that information to somebody else. So by that time, you can't organize it, you can't structure it. So as it comes, you are going to send that message. That is unorganized or unstructured. So therefore, here the contents may be organized or unstructured. And then the next component, ಮೂರನೇ component ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ media. Here, one second. So here I told the sender, that is the source of communication, is going to send the communication material using some communication media. So that media, that is using some media, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಮಾಧ್ಯಮವನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಯಾವ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ, ಯಾವ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಸಂವಹನಗೊಳಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಯಾವ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ವರ್ಗಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇವ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತೇವೆ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮ. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಕುಳಿತಿದ್ರೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕನ್ವೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವ ವಸ್ತುವನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಸಹಾಯವಿಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ವರ್ಗಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ದ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ವೇ. ದಿಸ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ may be verbal or non-verbal. So verbal means through our your verbalism, through speaking, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಶಾಬ್ದಿಕವಾಗಿ ಶಬ್ದಗಳ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಯಾವ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದೀವೋ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ. ನಾನ್ ವರ್ಬಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಶಾಬ್ದಿಕವಾಗಿ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ some signals, some symbols or some ಸನ್ನೆಗಳು, ಸಂಕೇತಗಳು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಸನ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನ, ಗೆಸ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಅದು ಮೀಡಿಯಾ. ನಾವು ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತಹ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮವೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ನ ಒಂದು ಮೂರನೇ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ which is used to transmit the organized or unorganized message or content to the receiver, and that media may be in the form of verbal or it may be in non-verbal form. Then coming to the next component, receiver. Again, receiver is the another important component of the communication, where receiver is the person at the receiving end. I told the first person, that is the source of communication. Whatever the message or material he want to send, that should reach to the other person, and the other person who is at the other end is receiver, that is who is going to receive whatever the message or material or content sent by the sender. And this receiver, he receives the message and he decodes the message and he interprets and understands what sender has sent. Andre ನೀವು ಮಾತನಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎದುರಿಗೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದೀರೋ, ಆ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಶಾಬ್ದಿಕವಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ಅಶಾಬ್ದಿಕವಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎದುರಿಗೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಆವಾಗ ರಿಸೀವರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ರಿಸೀವರ್ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಆ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ, ನೀವು ಕಳಿಸಿದಂತಹ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಡಿಕೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅರ್ಥೈಸಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಸೀವರ್. he will be or she will be at the receiving end. And then the next component is the responded material or feedback. I have mentioned in the process of communication cycle, where the next component is the responded material. So what you have done, you have some material with you, and using some media, you had sent that material to the receiver. Okay, the receiver has received your material, and the person, receiver, has decoded the message and interprets, understand what the message was sent by the receiver. Again, he has to respond back to the material or message whatever you had sent to that person, that is receiver. So for that, receiver is going to react or respond, signal, or he gives feedback to the sender. That is, he gives signals back to the sender. Sender ge ವಾಪಸ್ ಅವರು ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ, ಪ್ರತಿಕ್ರಿಯೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡೆಡ್ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ component I have mentioned, facilitator and barrier, and I have mentioned this facilitator and barrier both between the sender and the receiver, and again receiver and the sender. And these facilitators or barriers are some intervening variables. While transmitting the message or while transmitting the information, the number of variables, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿಸ್ facilitators or barriers. Here I have taken both the terms facilitator and barriers. Facilitator means that is which is going to facilitate, which is going to support the process of communication. And these facilitators and barriers, they may affect the communication favorably or adversely. Facilitators are going to affect the communication favorably and barriers are going to affect adversely. ವಿರುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಇದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪೂರಕವಾಗಿ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. That means presence of some intervening variables. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಧ್ಯಂತರವಾದಂತಹ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಅಂಶಗಳು ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ಗೆ ಬೇಡದೇ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ತೂರ್ತವೆ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ತಲೆ ಹಾಕ್ತವೆ. ಅವುಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಯರ್ಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಯರ್ಸ್, where facilitators are going to support favorably and barriers are going to affect adversely the process of communication. So therefore, in total, these are the main 6 components of the communication. If being a teacher or being a common man, if you want to communicate something to the other person, we should, or that process of communication follows these steps or this cycle, and this includes all these components. So without anyone, without having the sender or without having the receiver or without any message, we can't continue or we can't initiate the process of communication. If you want to say any process as a communication, that process should include all these 6 components, like sender, material or the message, then media, then receiver, then responded feedback material, facilitator or barriers. All these in total are going to constitute the process of communication. And then here I have mentioned some facilitators. Facilitators, already I told, these are the factors which are going to favorably affect or which are going to support the process of communication. So I have mentioned some factors here, physical factors which are favorable to the process of communication. Physical factors. For example, when here MMTC Center has asked me to take the class on communication skill, I thought it as an offline. I had prepared some activities for the offline classes. So I thought, so it may be an offline class, I can go for some activities. So this physical environment that is going to favor, or whatever the activities I planned is going to favor my communication process. But now we are online. We can see and we can talk. But that activity, what I have planned, it is somewhat different. So therefore, here I can't do that activity. So what happened? So alli enaaytu andre solpa adachane anta ಹೇಳಿ, it is not a favorable factor. So likewise, physical factors. ಈಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವರಿಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ತೊಂದರೆಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು. I am observing some people are in their institutions, some are in their home, and some are in traveling, like that. So that physical factors are going to disturb or going to support our communication. So if we consider the physical factors, the physical factors should be a favorable one, like wherever you are sitting. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಕುಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ನೀವು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಆದ್ರೂ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಲೈಕ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಟೀಚರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಮ್ ಆಗಿ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕ್ವೈಟ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಷ್ಟು ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ if your that physical factor is calm and quiet environment, if we have, we can concentrate on your classes, and it should be tension free and mutual interaction. ಯಾವುದೇ ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರುವಂತಹದ್ದು, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳುವಂತದ್ದು, ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ತರುವಂತದ್ದು, ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ. And if you don't have proper climate and weather condition, proper climate and weather condition, proper ventilation irbeku, proper light irbeku, seating arrangements, each and everything they are, and the multimedia, they are going to favor the process of communication. And unfavorable are noise, indiscipline, improper physical facilities, non-availability of appropriate aid material. They are all unfavorable facilitators. They are not going to facilitate the process of communication. For example, if there is a disturbances, noises from outside or from the internal, or indiscipline is there, improper physical facilities, I told there is no seating arrangement, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರಬಹುದು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಲಾಗಿನ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಗದೆ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಮೇ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಸಿ ದ PPTs like that, and non-availability of the appropriate aid material. What I told, you can't able to hear. If you have a earphone or some earpod like that, you can. So therefore here there are unfavorable factors which does not facilitate the process of communication. And then barriers. What are the barriers? Which that means restrictions. They are constraints to the process of communication. They are going to put and check on the process of communication, and that barriers may be internal or external. Internal means it may be a poor physical health. ಇನ್ನು ಒಂದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸರಳವಾದಂತ ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ನಾವು ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ನೂನ್ ಸೆಷನ್, and before coming to this session we had a good food. Okay, we had a good lunch, and that lunch may be ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಸ್ಲೀಪಿ, and moreover it is online, we little bit. Okay, so even that is also a internal, not to all, to some like. So therefore even that is also a internal barrier. And poor physical health, if you are not well today, maybe having light fever or headache or cold. Even see, I have some a little bit throat infection and cold. While speaking in between, I may break, I may pause my my flow of speaking. So that poor physical health, whatever it may be, I told, it is an internal barrier that may not allow you, or it makes, or it is a constraint in the process of communication. Okay, and then mental health, poor mental health. If you have any disturbance, already I told, mental health means, for example, you may had some argument with your colleagues or with your family members or something, or you may be having some tension like related to your technological aids or something else, that creates a little bit of tension, and you will be mentally disturbed, and that mental disturbances will not allow you to concentrate towards your whatever class or wherever you are, and whatever the events you are attending. So therefore it becomes a hindrance or a constraint to the communication. And then other factors, which is internal, prejudices, non-attention, feeling of insecurity, anxiety, depression, dissatisfaction. Prejudice means whatever the preconceptions you have about a person. For example, you don't know about me, who is going to the resource person who is going to take the class. If somebody, one of the participants from your group may know me, and they may interact with you, and they may say something about resource person, like the resource person is very good or not good, like that. Although you don't know about that resource person, based on whatever the other person has said, you are going to develop some uh, attitude, some attitude or some prejudices in your mind. Although the resource person is good, or your whatever the sender is there is good, you may not be able to listen how, to what extent the resource person is effective, very effective, but still that prejudice is going to hinder that communication, whatever is going between you and the resource person. So non-attention, if you are not able to attend, feeling of insecurity, your anxiety, your depression, all these are internal barriers which affects your communication. And another one factor, if the receiver is not able to understand the symbolic expression, because while teaching or while communicating, we are not going to communicate each and everything through verbatism only. Instead of that, sometimes we are going to use some cues, some signals. Even that is going to convey the message. So if the receiver is not able to understand that also, even then the communication will not become effective. So therefore, that becomes a barrier to the communication process. If we come to the external barriers, apart these are internal, that means internal means to the individual, within the individual. And this internal barrier, both facilitators and barriers are applicable both to the receiver and the sender. It may present both in the individual sender and the receiver. If we come to the external factors, so in the external factors, noise, polluted environment, invisibility, physical discomfort, improper functioning of media, lack of proper motivation, zeal, enthusiasm. All these contributes a lot to the process of communication adversely. That means noise. If you have a noise outside of your classroom or within the classroom, and if you can't see the board or the PPTs, or if you have any physical discomfort with your seating arrangement or with your classrooms or anything, and if your media is not working properly, and if you don't have any motivation and enthusiasm in the class or in any other conversation, you can't understand what the message sent by the sender. So therefore, in the process of communication, these facilitators and barriers play an important role in communicating or in transacting the message. If ನಾವು ಏನನ್ನೇ ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಸಹ, if the receiver is not, that means what I told, if the receiver is facing some barriers or is having some facilitators which are affecting adversely, then that receiver can't or is not able to understand whatever the message sent by the sender. So therefore, here facilitators and barriers, they play important role in the process of communication. Just one barrier can affect the whole process. If, for example, if we take the poor physical health, if you are not well today, ಜ್ವರ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ತಲೆನೋವಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಸಹ you are not able to understand what the material was transacted. So therefore, these are vital in case of communication. Then coming to the types of communication. Already I told that communication, being a teacher or being a layman, if you want to communicate any message or information, we are going to send or share that information in different ways. So, and that based on that, we have classified the communication into different types, and that types may be verbal communication, non-verbal communication, written communication, visual communication, listening communication. So here again this communication has been classified based on different criteria or based on different terms. In terms of communication media, that means what kind of media you are going to use to convey the message or to share the information. ನೀವು ನೀಡಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನೀವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋದರ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ the communication has been classified into two types, that is verbal communication and non-verbal communication. And then on the basis of use and non-use of mechanical means, if you are going to use the mechanical appliances or technological appliances like telephone, wireless, mail or something, then it becomes mechanical communication, and then it becomes natural without using any artificial and mechanical means. ಯಾವುದೇ artificial ಇದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡದೆ face to face, one to one ನೇರವಾಗಿ ಮಾತನಾಡಿದ್ರೆ that becomes natural communication. Again, in terms of communication situation, ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಯಾವ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ ಅದರ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆಯೂ ಸಹ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಡಿಸೈಡ್. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ based on the communication situation, we have 5 types of communication. One to one. One to one means, for example, you may be speaking with your friend, close friend, only one friend. One to one. That is one to one communication. And in your family, if you are speaking with your children, like with your daughter or with your son or with your husband or with your elder, whoever is there, that is one to one. There will be a eye to eye contact, and we are going to concentrate towards only one person. That is one to one. Then the second type is small group communication. Small group communication, like us, we can have a small classroom with 20 to 30 students. That is our regular classroom where we are going to teach our children. Small group. It is a single teacher is going to communicate or transacting the message or giving the information. That is small group communication. And then third type is large group or public. Large group, public. We know about the public speech. ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ politicians like ಅವರ ಸಮಾವೇಶಗಳಿರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, we are going to have, we want to convey the message, we want to give the information to the society. That is considered as the public communication. And then organizational or institutional. Organizational or institutional means in your institution, your higher authority may call for a meeting. ಒಂದು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಕರೀತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನಲ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್. ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್. ಇಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಅಥಾರಿಟಿ is going to call for a meeting, that is institutional communication. And then mass communication, it means for a large group, that is to the whole mass. Like what we say, for example, ಜನಾಂದೋಲನ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವಲ್ಲ, ಅದಿರ್ಬಹುದು. ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ಇಡೀ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆಗೆ ನಾವು ನೀಡುವಂತಹ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಅದು ಮಾಸ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್. These are all types of communication based on the communication media and based on use of mechanical or non-mechanical, based on use and non-use of mechanical means, and then in terms of communication situation. So coming to the first, here I'm going to concentrate more on the verbal and non-verbal communication, and in this verbal communication. So as the term itself, verbal. Here, verbal communication, in case of verbal communication, language, bhasha, that is the key and base of the communication. Language is the key and it is a base for the communication. Without language, whether it is Kannada, English or Hindi or any other language, language is the main key for our communication. If we don't know, for example, you will go for a trip with your students to other states. Let us take Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, or we will go to Delhi. We don't know Hindi, okay? And even we don't know, I don't know about Hindi and English also. If I go there, how should I communicate with the people who are living in Delhi? Without knowing the language, if you don't know any language, then how you are going to communicate? So here, in case of verbal communication, language is the key. That is the main thing which is essential for the verbal communication. And again, in this verbal communication, we have oral communication, written communication, and oral and written, combined oral and written communication. So, oral communication. So, in the oral communication, what is happening here? We are going to communicate our feelings, thoughts, and intention to others by speaking and listening channel. We are speaking here, okay, and somebody is listening. ನೀವು ಬರೀ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ, ಯಾರು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಹಿಯರ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಸ್ಪೀಚ್ ಏನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಇವ್ರು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಲೈಕ್ we are going to communicate our feelings, thoughts and intention to others by speaking and listening channel. ಮಾತುಗಾರಿಕೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕೇಳುವ ಒಂದು ಚಾನಲ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಥಾಟ್ಸ್, ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನೇನಿದಾವೆ ಅವೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ, ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಓರಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್. ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇನ್ ಡೈಲಿ ಲೈಫ್, ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಡೈಲಿ ಲೈಫ್ we are going to use oral communication. Whatever we are going to speak, other side there will be other person to listen. That we are going to use both speaking and listening channel, that is oral communication. And then coming to the written communication. See, written communication, it is also a kind of or a form of language communication. ಮೊದಲೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಫೋನ್ ಅಂತದ್ದು ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಹೌದ್ ತಾನೆ? ಸೊ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಫೋನ್ ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ, ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ಲೆಟರ್ಸ್. ನಮ್ಮ ದೂರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ರಿಲೇಟಿವ್ಸ್ ಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ವಿಷಯ ಅಥವಾ ಸಂದೇಶವನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ಲೆಟರ್ ಬರಿತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. That is a simple example and our old example for language communication, that is written communication. It is again what we are going to use in writing a letter. Again we are going to use the language. ನಾವು ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನೇ ಬಳಸುವಂತದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಪತ್ರವನ್ನ ಬರಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. ಈಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಈಗೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಸಹ ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಯಾರು ಲೆಟರ್ ಬರೆಯೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಇಮೇಲ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೇವೆ, ಹೌದಲ್ಲ? ಸೊ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಈವನ್ ಇಮೇಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟೈಪ್, ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟೈಪ್, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಟೈಪಿಂಗ್ ಸಹ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಅದೇ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಸಹ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ, ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸೊ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಇಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ವೇರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಎ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಈಸ್ in the form of written. That means ಬರವಣಿಗೆ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, where we are going to make use of script of the language. ಭಾಷೆ ಲಿಪಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. And this written mode may be pencil, paper or chalk, that is in our classroom what we are going to use. A board with a chalk or a white board with a pen. Okay, and then print media. Print media means in a book you may write, or you are going to have your books like which are in printed form. They are all written communication. That means they are going to convey messages to us in the form of written language. ಬರವಣಿಗೆ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವಿಧವನ್ನೇ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. ಯುವರ್ ಲೆಟರ್ ಆರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಇಮೇಲ್, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಓರಲ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್, both, that is we are speaking and also we are using writing. One good example for this is we the teachers, what we are going to do in our classroom. That means being a teacher we are going to use blackboard, or nowadays we are going to have the whiteboards or green boards. Blackboard plus use of language for the explanation of the written contents. See here, we are going to write some points on the boards and we are going to explain whatever the content written on the board using the language. ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಬರೆದಿರುವಂತಹ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದನ್ನೇ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, ಓರಲ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್. ಓರಲ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ we are using both speaking and writing, so that is oral written communication. So these are the types of verbal communication. And then coming to the non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication. So non-verbal term ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಶಾಬ್ದಿಕ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಶಬ್ದಗಳನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತೇವೆ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಎನಿ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಈಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್? ದೇರ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಎ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್. ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಅನ್ಸ್ಬೋದು, ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ದೇನೆ ನಾವೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ತಿಳಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬಂತು. ಎಸ್, ಆಫ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್. ಮಾತಾಡದೇನೆ ಕೇವಲ ನಮ್ಮ ದೈಹಿಕ ಭಾಷೆಯಿಂದಲೇ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸಬಹುದು. ಇದೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅನುಭವ ಆಗಿದೆ. All of us have experienced, and now in our classrooms or in your family or in all the situations we are going to use this non-verbal communication. That means without use of any verbal means, ಯಾವುದೇ ಶಾಬ್ದಿಕ ಮಾರ್ಗವಿಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು. And some special situations and even in normal situations also we are going to use non-verbal communication. So some special, not only in some special situations or in normal situations also. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭಗಳು ಇದಾವೆ, ವಿಶೇಷ ಸಂದರ್ಭಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತು ಬೇಕೇ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಮೌನನೇ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇವಲ ವಿಶೇಷ ಸಂದರ್ಭಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ನಾನ್ ವರ್ಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಸಹ, ನಮ್ಮ ದಿನನಿತ್ಯದ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಸಹ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ನಾನ್ ವರ್ಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಸಮ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ which I had given for this non-verbal communication skills are facial expressions, your mukacharya, mukhabhava, and then language of the eye, kannina bhashe, and then body language, ನಿಮ್ಮ ದೇಹ ಭಾಷೆ, sound symbols, ಶಬ್ದ ಸಂಕೇತಗಳು, symbolic code language. ಸಿಂಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಕೋಡ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್, ಸಂಕೇತ ಮತ್ತು ಸಿಂಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಂಜ್ಞೆಗಳ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸಂಕೇತ ಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸುತ್ತಾರೆ. So let us see in detail what are these facial expression and language of the eye. Here I had given a picture, but already I named it by seeing somebody's face. Okay. So here if you can see your friends, that is your co-participants face in online, some of them have they have switched off their what is that video. Okay, so some people I can see, if you are able to read the faces of your participants, will you switch over to your videos? Can I have a look? Sometimes what please unmute sir, unmute ಮಾಡಿ. So here what we can see by, we are not talking, I'm only talking from this side, ನಾನಷ್ಟೇ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಹೌದಲ್ವಾ? ಬಟ್ ನಾನ್ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವ್ರನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಕೆಲವರು ಸ್ಮೈಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ನನ್ಗೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬೈ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ದೇರ್ ಫೇಸ್, ಸಮ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಆರ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಟೆನ್ಷನ್. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ರು ಅವ್ರ ಆಫೀಸಿಂದ ಏನೋ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಏನೋ ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸು ಸಹ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡೈಲಮಾ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಂಗ್ಸೈಟಿ ಇದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ನೀವ್ ಯಾರು ನನ್ಗೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಬೈ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ಯು, ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನಿನ್ ಜೊತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಹಿಯರ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಫೇಶಿಯಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಖಚರ್ಯೆಯಿಂದನೇ ವಿ ಸೇ ದಟ್ ಮುಖವೇ ಮನಸ್ಸಿನ ಕನ್ನಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ ಒಂದು ಗಾದೆ. ಟ್ರೂ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಬಿಹೇವಿಯರ್. ಫೇಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಟ್ರೂ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಬಿಹೇವಿಯರ್. ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನಸ್ಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಬಿಹೇವಿಯರ್ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, ನೀವೇನ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಎನ್ನುವಂತದ್ದು ಅನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಖ ಭಾವ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. And we can see level of anxiety, stress, happy or joyful. That means ನೀವೇನು ಮಾತನಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಸಹ ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇದ್ರು ಸಹ ನನ್ನ ಮುಖವನ್ನ ನೋಡಿನೇ ನೀವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಹೇಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆಂಗ್ಸೈಟಿ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ನೀವು ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಯಾಕೆ ಡಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಾ. ನಿಮ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ಇವತ್ತು ತುಂಬಾ ಡಲ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ಯಾಕೆ ಡಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಎ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್, ವೈ ಆರ್ ಯು ಸೋ ಡಲ್ ಟುಡೇ, ವೈ ಯು ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಚೀರ್ಫುಲ್, why, what happened with you? Yeah, that means that face is going to express or is going to communicate some information to you. That is facial expression. In the classroom also, what we are going to do, being a teacher, you are going to deal with your students. So you are going to observe your students' faces. You can identify whether your students have understood the material, whatever you have said, or whether not, or they are interested or not, whether they are under stress, or whether they are disturbed, or their concentration is not some way, that means our taragatiyalli idaro ilva, whether they are attentive or not, or whether they are thinking something else other than the whatever you are teaching. So that is a comment without asking them is by observing their faces. Even vice versa, it can happen. Students are going to observe your faces. By seeing your faces, they can say that the teacher is very happy today, or teacher is very angry today, or teacher is sad, like that. Okay, and by that facial expressions, we are going to communicate something to our students. For example, what happens while teaching, if some students sitting in the back bench or in front or in between, they may disturb your classes, okay, while teaching in between your classes. What you are going to do? I'm going to do that for a while. I'm going to stop my teaching for a while, okay, for a, let us say for a of a minute, like that I'm going to stop. ಒಂದು ಅರ್ಧ ನಿಮಿಷ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಿ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನಿಲ್ತೇನೆ, ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾತನಾಡೋದು. And by seeing my face itself, the students will stop. Like they may be talking, ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಓ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ನನ್ನನ್ನ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ಗೆ ಕೋಪ ಬಂದಿದೆ. So they will get a message by seeing my face. That is facial expression. That means through that also we can communicate some messages. Then language of the eye. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣು ಸಹ ಮಾತನಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈಗಂತ ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ. ಥ್ರೂ ಐಸ್ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಒಂದು ಕುರಿತಂತೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಹಾಡುಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ಹೋಗಿದೆ. So then what is this language of the eye? So, and this language of eye is common and universal in all culture and society. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಮಾಜ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿ ಕಣ್ಣಿಟ್ಟು ನೋಡಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ. ಸಮಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಬೇರೆಯವರು, ಈಗ ನಾನು ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಇರುವ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ನನ್ನೆಡೆಗೆ ನೋಡುದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಥವಾ ನಾನ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. ಅವಾಗ ಅದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ? ವೈ if a person is not facing or is not looking towards you or is seeing somewhere else, that conveys a message to us that that person is not interested in your speech or in your teaching or whatever you are talking. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಾತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆಸಕ್ತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅದು ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇದು ನಾಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ, ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸೀಮಿತ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಆರ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ದಿಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಐ, ಇಟ್ ಕನ್ವೇಸ್ ದ interest of the people and it also creates the friendship or it makes friends. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಭಾಷೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಂಭಾಷಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗೆ ಆಸಕ್ತಿ ಇದೆಯೋ ಇಲ್ವೋ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ತೋರಿಸೋದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿನ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಶಿಪ್ ಅನ್ನ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಕಣ್ಣಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡ್ತಾನೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ನಾವು ಇಬ್ರು ಉತ್ತಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಗಬಹುದು ಎನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸಹ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿ this interest in the conversation or friendship, that means language of the eye, it shows interest whether that person is interested in your conversation or not interested, it says. And then it communicates the emotions. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಂವೇಗಗಳನ್ನು ಸಹ ಇದು ತಿಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಲೈಕ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ತುಂಬಾ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳು ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೊಳಿತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಥ್ರೂ ಅವರ್ ಐಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹೇಟೆಡ್ ಹೋಪ್. ಅಥವಾ ದ್ವೇಷ ಇದ್ರೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಹೇಗೆ ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೀವು ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಲಸ್ಟ್, ಆಸೆ, ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಭಾಷೆ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಫೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇರುವಾಗ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಸಿಂಪತಿ, ಅನುಕಂಪವನ್ನ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ while showing sympathy, how your eyes speaks, that we have to. And Teacher language of I. If we come to the teacher, it encourages or discourages students' participation. Encourages or discourages. ನೀವು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳನ್ನ ನೋಡುವಂತಹ ನೋಟ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಭಾಷೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿಕೆಯನ್ನೇ ಎನ್ಕರೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಡಿಸ್ಕರೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೇನೆ, ಆಂಕೆ ಬಿಚಾನ, ಆಂಕೆ ದಿಖಾನ. ಆಂಕೆ ದಿಖಾನ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಕಣ್ಣು ನೋಡು. That means by seeing, if you are angry or if you want to warn somebody, you are going to warn through your eyes only. At home, to warn some small kids, what we are going to do? Through eyes only we are going to convey message. We mother at home, we are going to do this a lot. If a child wants to have something in eyes only, even the child asks mother, even mother says or mother gives permission or not says no, like that. So that is anke vichana and anke dikhana, means we are going to warn our kids or children. So in the classroom also teacher can use, and whatever the language of the eye the teacher is going to use in their classroom, it encourages or discourages the students' participation. If you are going to warn, if you are going to ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಫ್ರೈಟನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಐಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ, ದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್. ಈಗ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಯನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಮಗು ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನೀವೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಕಣ್ಣಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಮಗುವಿನೆಡೆಗೆ ನೋಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮಗು ಅದು, ಇಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಐಸ್, ಯುವರ್ language of your eyes is very strict, and if says it conveys some message, by that itself the student can understand what the teacher is saying, whether to answer or not to, whether the teacher is allowing me to answer, or he or she is saying to or asking me to keep quiet, like that. So that is the language of the eye. Through our eyes itself we can make our students to encourage or